Well, hello there, watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with Rachel Cunliffe, Senior Associate Editor at the New Statesman, and Anna Soubry, barrister and former government minister. Welcome to both of you. As ever, we will turn our attention to the front pages first of all. Starting with The Guardian, there are claims on the front of The Guardian that more senior Conservatives are turning against the Home Secretary's racist rhetoric, quote unquote, in the paper. At last, a leader who knows what a woman is reads the front of the Daily Mail as they look at government policy on trans rights. Junior doctors have been accused of putting politics above patient safety. That's the front page of the Daily Telegraph, as strikes are pinpointed as a reason for patient fatalities. Families plead for disabled children to get access to their own savings. That's the front of the Eye as they look at trust funds established under the former Labour Chancellor, Gordon Brown. The Financial Times has a story involving the financial consultancy firm Ernst & Young, which warns its UK arm of fresh cutbacks. And the Daily Star says the cost of living crisis has got people in a sweat over the increased price of deodorants. Front of the Express looks at the royal family. Its headline, "No Appetite to Make Peace with Harry." The news, of course, that he was attending the King's coronation. While the Metro pays tribute to British fashion designer and miniskirt pioneer Dame Mary Quant, who has died at the age of 93. While the front of the Mirror looks at a man who won millions on the lottery while serving time. Don't forget, by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can then check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you listen to our guests. So let's head straight to them, to Rachel and Anna. So let's start with the very latest on these investigations, shall we? The FBI arresting a 21-year-old, Rachel, over this apparent leak of defence documents taken very seriously, and plenty of questions for the authorities in the United States on this.
Yes, one of the main questions being why. So these documents were leaked last week, and that they are very detailed, sort of classified documents referring to the Ukraine war and essentially American assessment of Ukraine, Russia, various allies, what China should be doing, what South Korea might be doing, really classified, sensitive documents. Now, they've traced it to this guy who has been arrested, who is 21 years old. And the question really that a lot of people are asking is, what's the motive here? Obviously, it's too early to say, but you've got reports of quotes from his friends saying that there might not have been a political motivation here. He just wanted to impress his friends. These documents were leaked on the social media site Discord, which is used a lot by gamers, developers, people into kind of internet culture. And it's really kind of worrying that someone who is essentially a teenager would have had access to these documents and might, despite the training that he would inevitably have gone through, thought, yeah, I'll post it on a social media site just to impress my friends.
Yes, and, the motivation of what happened here or what occurred here for a nearly teenager, a 21-year-old, will certainly be examined. Was he a bad actor? Was he just boasting to his friends? The suggestion is that on this chat room Discord, he oversaw Thug Shaker Central, a group of about 20 or 30 people, Anna, sharing guns, memes and games. And the suggestion from someone else on that chat group was that, first of all, handwritten notes appeared that appeared to be classified documents, and then photographs of folded papers were posted. Was this a boast, just to show, I can join in this conversation about Ukraine in a way that you lot can't effectively? But nonetheless, the authorities in the States, we heard from the Department of Justice and the Department of Defence, taking this extremely seriously, suggesting that a criminal act has been committed here.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to take this very seriously because it is very serious. Of course, you could say that in the past, if you were wanting to undermine your country's security and the safety of its people, it was usually because you were giving those secrets to another foreign power who was acting against our country's or whatever country's interests you were meant to be defending. And this is the peculiarity of it. It's not suggested that he's a Russian spy or working for the Chinese. He just seems to be weird. And he's in with a group of rather weird people who've got some unpleasant views on guns and that sort of dark, rather odd view of society and American society in particular. So look, it is a serious leak because seriously important stuff that should be secret is now being posted on the internet, in effect. But the motives for it are also fascinating. And it may be that, yet again, it speaks more about the state of American society.
Well, certainly the Guardian suggesting that the top secret documents were first uploaded from late last year to March, although Joe Biden, when asked by reporters in Ireland, did say there's nothing contemporaneous that I'm aware of that is of great consequence. So he's trying to play it down. But of course, they don't know what is still out there that might be revealed, which is of great concern, no doubt, to the Pentagon and others. Let's move on to the I, shall we? Families plead for disabled children to get access to their own savings. What's the context of this then, Rachel?
So this is a really sad story, and actually various newspapers have been running campaigns on it recently. Between 2002 and 2011, savings accounts were opened automatically for children born in the UK. So if you were born between that time, the government opened a savings account for you. And indeed, the government would deposit some money, £250 for every child, or £500 if for those who are vulnerable or on low incomes. The idea being encouraging parents and everyone to sort of start saving young for these children. They get access to the money when they're 18. However, children or individuals with learning disabilities who are not seen fit to be in control of their money obviously can't access it. So there's this campaign underway as the first cohort start to turn 18 with their families and their parents trying to access the money on their behalf. It's their own money. It's the money belonging to the children, and yet the parents, the families can't have access to it because in those 18 years, it seems nobody foresaw that this might be a problem. So families are facing hefty legal fees to try and access that money, often to buy sort of crucial equipment, or if there are the children who are severely ill, to sort of use that money for once in a lifetime memories, anything like that. No, they have to go through a lengthy legal process. And you are seeing increasingly more and more newspapers take up the cause and point out that this money belongs to these individuals. They just can't access it.
I mean, Anna, this sounds like the original policy getting in the way of reality. And in fact, why not have it even earlier to pay for care, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, the amount of money, according to the I, for any individual is £2,280, which isn't an enormous amount of money. But for that child and for that family, that is a big sum of money, and they can do some really good stuff with it. And it just needs sorting, and there will be a simple way of sorting it out if somebody in government mind to do it. So it's one of those, look, just get on and sort it and do it now.
Anna, I'm going to stay with you for the front page of The Guardian. Senior Tories turning against Suella Braverman's racist rhetoric. This was a former party chair, was it not, earlier today? What is the gripe against her? Why is she not doing the job she was set out to do? Small boats, we know, is a main target for the government, etc., etc. So what's the background for this?
So I shall try not to. I should try to be as impartial as I possibly can and not give her any benefit of the doubt, but put it in this way. So you've got Suella Braverman, who holds one of the great offices of state, who seems to be incapable of using language that is decent and fair and certainly befits the great office of state that she holds. And we've seen a number of examples where she's used language which is inflammatory and is unacceptable. But in this recent week, we've seen her describe Pakistani grooming gangs and giving the impression that the only people in the United Kingdom who have been grooming vulnerable children are of Pakistan origin, which is not true. And rightly, people have criticised this and are outraged. The interesting thing is that finally the Conservative Party at a senior level is beginning to call her out. Now, I think I'm right in saying, certainly in The Guardian, nobody's actually had the decency to be named and come out and say what is absolutely the case, is that this woman is unfit for national office because she uses, well, amongst other things, she uses language which is inflammatory and is unacceptable and is often, she is factually inaccurate. And to see this on The Guardian, I think when Parliament is back, when the local elections are over, I think we will see more and more people quite rightly seeing her for what she is. And I think she will be at risk of being in the next reshuffle removed. She certainly should be.
That's interesting, isn't it? The Guardian, Rachel, saying that pressure is mounting on Rishi Sunak to intervene to protect the party's reputation. And yet here we are at a time when Labour is using personal attack ads against both the Prime Minister and his wife as their means of heading towards the election, what, back end of 2024, we're learning?
Well, I think there were sort of dirty tricks, adverts, personal attacks sort of on both sides. I remember when it was Boris Johnson trying to associate Keir Starmer with the Jimmy Savile scandal and all of that. Certainly, there's also been at PMQs, the Prime Minister accusing Starmer of supporting people trafficking gangs or being on the side of people trafficking gangs because Labour opposes a small boats policy. So, yeah, as you get closer to an election, both sides get more heated and you start seeing these personal attacks. What's happening here, I think, is slightly different. I think Anna's right to flag that it's important not just that people are upset about the language that Suella Braverman uses. I mean, we know that they are. She was challenged in a constituency meeting by a Holocaust survivor about her use of the word invasion when it comes to talking about migrants. No, the interesting thing is it's senior Tories now who are worried about this. Okay, they're not being named, but you've got somebody in The Guardian quoted as being a senior minister in Boris Johnson's government who calls Suella Braverman, and I've written this down, a real racist bigot, and that's in print in The Guardian. Now, Conservatives, I think, are getting really worried about this. Particularly, the worry is that Braverman actually isn't that interested in Rishi Sunak's government or in the Conservative Party as it currently is. She's interested in her own future, in pandering to the very right wing of the Conservative Party, perhaps a possible leadership bid in future, perhaps a place in the shadow cabinet in a future regime, or just simply playing to the right-wing think tanks and the speech circuit that we know is very lucrative. Just look at Liz Truss. So there are worries among Conservatives that her focus on her own personal ambition, doing things like getting upset that the police have got involved with the pub landlord who had the racist gollywog dolls, rather than making any sort of substantive comment on the massive reform that the police forces in this country very clearly needs, that she was quite quiet about.
Okay.
Basically, that she's becoming a liability. And I think you're going to see more and more of this as you get closer to the election, the worry that actually she's doing the Conservative Party more harm than good, coming from Conservative voices.
Let's just take a quick look at the Daily Telegraph. Interesting here, junior doctors, the Telegraph says, have been accused of putting politics above patient safety, as figures show excess deaths almost tripled after their strikes, Anna. Figures from the Office of National Statistics show the number of deaths above average increased significantly in the 2 weeks during and after the first round of industrial action by the British Medical Association. Obviously, second round is ongoing at the moment. But, you know, does that put pressure on striking doctors?
Well, I think the point is, if I may say, I think that the doctors' big fear is that they're actually going to lose public support. I think they've probably just about got it, but not 36%, which is unrealistic. And the danger is that as this drags on and people see the profound effect it is having on real people, on patients, I think public support will drift away. So the most intelligent thing that both sides can do is cut the rhetoric, sit down and get it sorted.
Yes, and interestingly, two of the biggest unions representing nurses and other health workers are set to announce the results of their ballots.
Yeah,
I think voting closes Friday. Certainly, I think the Times was suggesting that NHS nurses are expected to strike again over their pay deals. So great concern. Obviously, we'll see what happens when those ballots close for the Royal College of Nursing and for Unison, I think it is, isn't it? So plenty to play for there. Anyway, stay there, both of you. Lots more Still to come on the programme, taking a look at more of the inside, or the front pages rather. This on the front of the Telegraph. Coronation chin fired in a masculine blue. Explain that one in a moment. Well, welcome back. You're watching our press preview with me once again, Rachel Cunliffe, Senior Associate Editor at the New Statesman, and Anna Soubry, barrister and former government minister. Welcome back to both of you. Anna, let's go to the Metro, shall we? One of the papers that has decided to lead on the death of Dame Mary Quant. One of those absolutely extraordinary names. The swinging 60s and beyond. There are very few people who are effectively so famous in the world of fashion and design.
Yes, and I mean, she really, I just can't, I don't think we should underestimate the enormous influence that this woman had, not just on fashion, but on the lives of women. So when the swinging 60s was happening, I would be about 10 years of age. So it really impacted on young women like me when I was a child. And, she lifted the hem, as you can see here, which was revolutionary, and she championed it. And she went further than that because her fashion was actually fashion for all. And that was a huge breakthrough. That, fashion was often for people who could afford haute couture out of the great French houses. And what Quant did was that she made clothes that, well, first of all, young women wanted to wear. She said, be proud of who and what you are, fabulously youthful, and then just revolutionary in it. But on top of that, she was a great businesswoman, and she did much more than fashion. She went into makeup with great success. So all-round hero, but really important, I think, in our modern culture, especially for women, and dare I say it, for the liberation of women. She really was that important in the way that women broke free from some of the shackles that had held us back for so long.
Yes, and even listening to clips of her speaking in the 60s, talking about shoes, saying, I've never worn a pair of comfortable shoes in my life. I want to make seamless shoes. And then the tights come from the shoes and it's all one great seamless thing.
That's
and
right.
working with fabric is difficult because women aren't 2D, they're round. I want to make round clothes. So thinking about this sort of the whole element of it. But an icon, certainly, adopting that Vidal Sassoon bob haircut. I think I'm almost wearing it tonight, but not quite. But anyway, she lives on, and that's the point, I suppose, isn't it, Rachel?
It is, and just looking at some of those photos that you had on screen a moment ago, absolutely iconic, capturing an age. You could show those to anyone and they would know exactly what period you were talking about. And not just mini skirts. I'm a huge fan of mini skirts, but also colour tights. I'm a huge fan of those too. Hot pants, the type of raincoats that she did, onesies, all of these kind of things, that staples of fashion today. Often we can sort of trace the origins of them back to her design. The idea that women should wear fashion that they looked good in, but also felt good in and could move in, which is really important as well.
I'm not sure shoes are comfortable yet, though, are they? Maybe we need to have a go at that one again. Anyway, let's go to our final story just quickly, Anna. Coronation China, not chin, as I said earlier, that makes more sense, doesn't it? Has been fired in a blue colour, with the developer saying we want to develop a range that was a bit more masculine, Anna.
So there we are. I've just made this sort of little speech about saying Mary Quant, the great liberation of women that took part in the 60s and for young women like me. And then what do we see? Apparently, oh my goodness me, Coronation China fired in a masculine blue. What is a masculine blue? and I mean, under Queen, the marvellous Queen Elizabeth, who we all love so much, did we have sort of girly sort of itsy fairy sort of bits of, I mean, for goodness sakes, what a nonsense is that? It's blue. It's,
Yeah.
isn't it?
I mean, to be fair, blue China is a thing, right? Oh, both of you stay there. Thank you both very much indeed. And Anna Soubry and Rachel Cunliffe, thank you both very much indeed.